That's our nice little introduction for our webinar Wednesdays. So thanks, Alex, for that. So yeah, thanks a million for joining us this morning. We're going to talk about sustainability and European programs. We have a lot to get through. Sorry about the speed. But hopefully you'll hear some really interesting and inspiring stories. You'll also get some kind of overview of the new programs. So next year, as you know, we're coming into a new Erasmus Plus program and a slightly new European Solidarity Core program. But both programs have priorities in sustainability, both in terms of practice and also focuses on under projects. So just to remind you, just to please mute your microphone during the presentations, but feel free to ask the questions by raising your hand or using the chat. Alex will be monitoring that throughout and helping us then if there's any questions. So the reason that we're here today is to learn how to incorporate the concept of sustainability into your organisation and project, to discuss the key policies in the areas of sustainability and how to connect them to your organisation, to exchange good practice within the field of sustainability, and to explore how Erasmus Plus and the European Solidarity Corps can support green European projects. So in terms of the agenda, then we're going to do some welcome introductions like this. Unfortunately, we don't have the time to go around to everybody and introduce each other. But if you want, we can share emails if there's an interesting question or if somebody says anything. So you can let us know if it's okay to share your email with others. We're also going to talk about the Sustainable Development Goals, and we're going to get an overview this morning. We're also going to get examples of the concept of European programs, the under youth and the European Solidarity Corps, and also under adult ed. Hopefully we'll have a time for discussion and Q&A. And we're also going to give you a very short overview of both programs, a little dip at the toe, basically. And so this morning we have Caitlin Wilson from the Eco-UNESCO. So Caitlin is going to set the scene. Thanks, Caitlin. And set the context for the SDGs. Then we have Davey Phillip from Cultivate. He's going to talk about his programs and projects that he's done over the past few years and how he's incorporated into his projects focus on absolutely the area of sustainability. So it's that kind of idea of if you're in that work and you're doing that work, how do you bring the programs in? And then Declan O'Driscoll, who's joined by Andrew, they'll talk about how they've brought it in terms of focus of the project. So they're not necessarily involved in all that work directly, but how they've brought that into their project. So I'm working with young people. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Caitlin. So Caitlin is going to share her screen, give us a nice overview, and thanks very much.
And unmute myself. Good morning, everyone. My name is Caitlin, and my background is in environmental science and education. And I did my research on education for sustainable development. And I've worked in different areas with adult education, with formal schools, and in non-formal. And now at Eco-UNESCO, I'm in the youth non-formal space, which is a really exciting place to be and sometimes unpredictable. So this morning, I want to just give you, in these 10 minutes, tell you a bit about Eco-UNESCO and how our work relates to sustainability policy, look quickly at the kind of overall policy context for sustainability and education for sustainable development, and then really look at how can policy support your work and how can your work support policy and what can we get out of that relationship. And then we want to look much more closely at the UN Sustainable Development Goals, which you've probably all heard of by now. So we'll try to get in a little bit more deeply there, as deep as you can get in 10 minutes. And I have some fantastic resources that I want to share with you that are just packed with ideas and activities and things you can do, projects, all sorts, to answer the question, oh, that's all lovely, but what do I do with it now? So Eco-UNESCO is a non-governmental organization, more than 30 years old. We work with more than 10,000 young people every year through different programs. Some are sort of wider, more shallow, some are more narrow and deeper. We work both in formal and non-formal spaces. We are a key partner of UNESCO, their Global Action Program for Education for Sustainable Development specifically. We're a QQI accredited training center. We have, I think, 8 approved courses that we run at level 5, and you can check our website if you're interested in that. And last year we got named a Government of Ireland Sustainable Development Goal champion for our work. And here at the top, this is kind of what sums us up. What we're trying to do here is channeling the passion and energy of young people into positive environmental action. So we do this through a variety of ways. Maybe the one you have heard of is the Young Environmentalist Awards. And that is a contest for groups of young people who have done an environmental action project in their community or in their school. And they can enter it into 12 different categories that span all the different environmental issues. And that's a big celebration, usually in person. Last year and this year it will be virtual. But it's still really fun and a great way to get involved, and it's open across the whole island of Ireland. And then we have a number of direct delivery programs and events, publications, workshops, all sorts, you name it. At the moment, we're recruiting for our Youth for Sustainable Development program. That's 6 weeks for teenagers, and that's hosted by us. And the European Youth Summit, which is our Erasmus Plus co-funded Key Action 3, and it's on climate change. And we are also recruiting participants for the Irish cohort in that summit. And you can register Environmentalist Awards action projects now. So sustainability is kind of theorized more as a process than a state of being. So it's more like, it's about the journey, not the destination. And education for sustainability then is the approach, the kind of how you walk along that pathway, which is sustainability. And if we want to try to characterize education for sustainable development and describe that approach, then this picture does it nicely. And this is what sort of how we picture what we do, how we work. So it's holistic and interdisciplinary, it's values driven, critical thinking is key, it's locally relevant, it uses a multiple of methods to suit different types of learners, it's very participatory and deals in decision making, and it's action oriented. And all of that sounds, I'm sure, just fantastic, but maybe the point is that these are a departure from conventional and traditional educational methods. And these are sort of what we say is required by the fact of unsustainability, if that makes sense. So because we're trying to deal with all of these difficult issues, and because we believe that education is a key vehicle in this approach towards sustainability, then we need to work like this because we're not as it is. This is kind of, if you can tell, that specifically is really my passion area. So if you want to talk more about those things, we can talk later. So the policy quick overview here. Internationally, the UN SDGs are the major one, and they represent, honestly, a feat of the humans of Earth that all the United Nations agreed to these goals. And we'll look at them a bit more closely in a minute. We also have UNESCO's Global Action Program for Education for Sustainable Development, which is now being sort of transformed into ESD for 2030. Everything now is being called for 2030. We also have the Education 2030 Agenda, which is a little bit different from ESD for 2030. But anyway, those are the sort of big international policies that have to do with these areas. And that got it all sort of filters down. So in Europe, the UNECE translated that to the strategy for ESD, as well as the big, it just got approved, I think last December, the Transforming Our World 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. So that's what the European Union are all working on, and each nation has to meet goals for that policy, which kind of feeds into the SDGs then. Nationally, we have our Sustainable Future. It's our framework in Ireland for sustainable development, and we have a national strategy on ESD. And then locally, you'll have, every local authority will have originally it was Local Agenda 21. You might remember, if you can go all the way back to Rio in '92, the big conference on humans and the environment. And now that's been transformed into the Community Environment Action Fund. So what's so great about all these beautiful policies getting written every 10 years, and what does that have to do with anything? Actually, the last word of the Community Environment Action Fund kind of gives you a clue about why it might be important to you. The thing is that policies, I mean, of course, they operate both on an ideological level, but the practical level is probably what we feel mostly day to day, whether we're required to meet policy targets or whether we want to. So if we talk a bit about the ideological, knowing what policy out there that relates to you, it can really strengthen your work. It can give you a sense of taking part in a greater effort and a greater movement. It can give you a sense of purpose, feel you're working more deliberately, and it can really importantly connect you to other organizations, institutions, people who are doing the same thing all over the world, or across the street, and you didn't know about it. And just getting together, that sense of solidarity is, I think, one of the main things that can keep us driving towards sustainable development when we're faced with challenges every day. So I think that connection part of policy is really important. But then, of course, bottom line, policy gets translated into programs and budgets. And so, for example, Erasmus Plus program that I think all of us are familiar with here or have even worked with is the huge one that has created so many opportunities for people to learn, to act, to change. It's been really, transformative for Europe. So the SDGs, I wonder if you've all become familiar with all of them by now, but you can see from this picture that they are many and diverse, and they leave no stone unturned. They really try to get at every aspect of society. The three in the bottom corner are what Eco-UNESCO focuses on. You might have your own special focuses in your work, but sort of interestingly, what set the SDGs apart from the Millennium Development Goals was that they more than doubled the number of goals. So it was a moment in time in 2015 when we realized that, okay, the Millennium Development Goals are great and valid, but actually there's so much more. And it kind of reflects the complexity of our world and how it's become, that we can't just say, oh, we just need to fix these few things and everything will be fine. Actually, it's a really complex system and we have to get at every part of it. So in 2015, like I said, all the United Nations approved this as our major agenda, and that was a big moment. And now 2030 is the big deadline. And they are ambitious, they are comprehensive, and maybe we won't meet them by 2030. But if you don't shoot high, you won't get anywhere. I like this picture here on this side because it shows how, even though there might be a plethora of goals and it seems maybe overwhelming, it shows that many of them are obviously very closely related. And then if you conceive of it through the sustainability lens, you have the economy, which operates, it is a product of our society and it has to serve society. And then society and the economy within it, they can only operate within the natural bounds that the environment gives us through our resources and everything, all the nature-based services that we rely on, the whole ecosystem. We easily forget that we're not part of it, but we are, and it determines everything we're able to do. So you can't have any of the goals without the others. And probably among all of us who are here today, education is the big one. So that's goal number 4. And specifically for sustainability, 4.7, the sub goal, this one is about all learners acquiring the knowledge and the skills needed to promote sustainable development and everything that entails. So this is the one that really gives all of us kind of our reason for being. And now I'm going to see if I can do the fancy new share function that we did. No, now it's a bit different, but that's okay. I'm gonna just share this. Sorry, just a moment. Here we go. So Yes, so this is on the UN's website, and they have a really nice overview of the goals, of course, but what they do is they sort of translate them into, instead of saying here, for example, no poverty, it gives you an example of how you can do that in action and what it means. And you can do that for every single one of the goals. And then if we go into, okay, I think I'll stay here instead of going back to the slideshow because I just wanted to show you the different resources. So for example, our program manual, this program manual for the Youth for Sustainable Development, it has an overview. Is it not showing? I don't think it is. Hang on, sorry guys. Am I over time yet?
You've 1 minute.
1 minute, okay. So this is our Youth for Sustainable Development Program Manual. And as you can see, it also has an overview of all the different goals, what they mean, a bit of a discussion, some facts about it. And then the rest of the manual is just full of activities that you can do that work on the goals. Now, this resource is unfortunately one that you have to buy, and you can email me if you want to buy it. But it is just packed full of really good, it's based on transformative pedagogy. So it's not just kind of learning about this and, oh, that's nice, but it's really critical thinking, creative thinking, working together, you know, really facing the issues head on. And I have to switch to this one. So the Young Environmentalist Awards Program Manual is all about how to carry out an action project, and it has to do with the SDGs as well. I'm going to just skirt past the going into the resources in depth. This one here is from NYCI, the National Youth Council of Ireland, and it is the Climate Revolution, How Dare You? A bit of a difficult pun there. They're quoting Greta Thunberg and how she said, how dare you, to all the world leaders. And this one is all about climate, really, really good. And that's for youth age. It can be formal, non-formal settings. In case we had some adult educators here, this is, I worked in Iceland before coming to Ireland, and I took part in this, the Nordic Education for Sustainable Development, and that was for adults and non-formal setting. And so this one is lots of different approaches, more pedagogical approaches for working with adults on sustainability. And it's really good as well. Sorry, now it's being funny to me. I'm gonna try to show you. There. This one is resources for educators. So this is in school, and it's very, very good. You click on the goal that you want to work on, and then it just has a whole laundry list that you can go through and check out. And that's including a lot of things from this, the world's largest lesson, which you may have heard of. It's also made for doing in school, but I think it works well in the non-formal setting as well. If you just want to check out one thing today, check out The Pandemic is a Portal by Arundhati Roy. You may have heard of her, but she wrote this big essay, and then the UNICEF and UNESCO turned it into a short video, which is really gets you thinking. Then we have Getting Climate Ready for Schools and secondary schools and climate change. It's still loading. But I just wanted to show you what they look like, and I'll share all the links.
I was going to ask you that. You'll send all those links to us, Caitlin, will you? And then we can share them around. Perfect.
Of course. I'm sorry that it's only 10 minutes and we had to skate right through it. So thanks anyway.
No, thanks a million, Caitlin. That was brilliant. I think that's really set the context of what we're going to be talking about in terms of then applying that policy into the practice, please. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Davey Phillip from Cultivate, and he's going to talk about what he's done with that in terms of then translating that and moving it into practice. Is that okay, Davey? Thanks a million. Oh, you're done now. Great.
Okay, thanks, Suzanne. Thanks, Caitlin, for the introduction to the Sustainable Development Goals. I'm going to give some examples on where we're based in rural Ireland on the European Solidarity Corps programme and Erasmus Plus, mostly K2s, but maybe one K1. So I'm Davey Phillip. I am the project director for Cultivate who's really Ireland cooperative, and we've been running for 20 years, promoting, highlighting a more systemic approach to sustainability. And we're based now in Cloghjordan Eco Village, which I'll briefly introduce. And I'm currently the chair of Cloghjordan Community Farm, which runs our ESC program. And right now I'm the co-president of Ecolise, which is a big European meta-network of community-led initiatives for climate action and sustainability. And they have just launched Communities for Future, which is a new action program directing resources, especially for new young people that are becoming aware of the climate. So how do I move my slides? Okay, so Caitlin's went into the SDGs. I really like this logo as well from the Stockholm Resilience Centre, which shows a more systemic approach to seeing goals rather than 17 separate areas. We need to see them holistically and how they fit systemically. And the goals will inform a lot of the new stimulus packages, new funding packages, and programs coming from Europe and nationally for climate action, the Green Deal, new programs for just recovery and just transition. So I think it's important that we can frame our work in the Sustainable Development Goals. So I said we're based in Cloghjordan. We're a destination for learning. We're a living community. We're walking our talk. For 10 years in Dublin, we ran centres talking our talk. Now we walk our talk. It's a little challenging, but it's a rich experience with a real tight and diverse community. We're in an environment for training, learning, research, as well as a great place to stay. And we say we're an ecosystem of innovation because about 3 national NGOs, about 10 learning providers on different things, and a few other businesses and entities all in the eco-village. So it's quite complex. And the eco-village is mapped out as well as the farm, which goals we're mapping. And as Caitlin said, it's important to look at the targets as well. So there's 169 targets below the 17 goals, which make it a bit more accessible and able to match what we're doing. Cultivate, our Sustainable Ireland Co-op, we've been really accelerating this idea of resilience, community resilience and sustainability through the social solidarity economy. We're really into co-ops. We are a co-op. We're doing a lot of work on promoting local initiatives that create livelihood and meaning and purpose. And we do a number of projects here, localizing the goals with IENs. We do workshops across the country, showing local groups how they can adapt the goals. And we run this big centre in Cloghjordan, which is an innovation and enterprise centre focused on community innovation and social enterprise with things like fab labs and food hubs. And our farm is just adjacent to this. So we've been looking recently, well, for the last 15 years, we've done Erasmus Plus projects. But 2 that we're working on right now, BLAST, which is where we started in 2019 with a kickoff meeting here in Cloghjordan. It's a K2 strategic partnership, and it's really looking to enable educators, trainers to look at transformative learning opportunities, and especially through a blended approach. So now everyone's aware what blended is. When we started, it was quite a new concept, but we're trying to bring this sort of transformative approach of participation and engagement to the blended environment, not just virtual meetings, but maybe distributed events with small meetings in a number of venues and with good potential for synergy using these virtual tools. So we've just set up a virtual studio now in our centre for doing webinars, podcasts, and distributed events, blended events. And we're really with European partners diving into toolkits and training for trainers for this blended approach. We're just about to start another K2 strategic partnership, which Cultivate are leading with 8 partners across Europe, and it's called Community Climate Coaches. And again, it was looking at the need to get local responses to these global programs, seeing that there was an emphasis in climate change, although what we're looking at really is community catalysts. How do we catalyze that change in our communities? So our climate coaches won't be going out talking about climate science and 350 parts per million or 2 degrees, 3 degrees. They're really looking at what are the local changes we can make, especially that can provide goods and services in our local areas and give us meaningful work. So they're really facilitators of change. Our main European Solidarity Corps project, we've quite a large project run by our community farm, Clough Community Farm. It's one of Ireland's biggest examples of community-supported agriculture. That's where we bring together and change the relationship between the consumer and the producer. It's a subscription basis, so our community gets really involved in our farm. We employ 2 young farmers and 2 part-time volunteer coordinators that run our ESC program. We have 8 volunteers that stay for a year in 2 6-month rounds, and we've now got we're just running our first small-scale ESC program called Building Bridges and reaching out to beyond our CSA project. So it's been really helpful, I think, to give young people an experience of living in community, to be able to learn how to grow, save seeds, and engage with the land, restoring ecosystems. We do a big emphasis on Agri Ecology. And they go through a number of processes and learning from sowing, planting, seed saving, delivering, but also many other projects in the community where we might do projects on community resilience or sustainability. And you can see there's some they're building a pizza oven down on the farm in that bottom left-hand corner. So you get a sense that we've got quite a dynamic program that we feel is giving young people across Europe and now Ireland with the new ESC program a real opportunity to learn, to develop competencies and skills. Many of them want to stay here after they finish their year, and there's a few examples of that, or many go on to work or to start community supported agriculture projects in their own country. I wanted to just finish, I've got a few minutes left, just to take a bit wider. How do we promote these things? Well, every year, apart from this year, we run the sustainability area at the Electric Picnic. So now there's potentially 70,000 eyes in our area. We take 30 organizations, including for the last 2 years, Lergus, have been promoting the ESC schemes and different schemes through small workshops and their own tents with different activities. We have a Sustainable Development Goals exhibition that we take there, and we run, I don't know, 10, 15 workshops a day. We have big musicians, and I think it's an opportunity to try and do what we're trying in Cloughjordan, is to mainstream and normalize the sustainability and solidarity agenda that is not so uncommon or scary for people to move into. And so going out and working with local communities on framing their work in sustainable development goals, or going to big events like the Electric Picnic, I think is good leverage for promoting these European programs, but also how these European programs can help us meet not just our sustainable development goals, but our climate target and the new stimulus packages, as I mentioned, with the Green Deal coming on board, there's smart villages. There's so many programs now that are going to put a bigger emphasis on greening, sustainability, and solidarity. So I think it's a huge opportunity, I think, for the programs that we can avail of through our national agency, Lergus, to connect with European partners, to give a good experience for younger people, and to map out the pathways we need to move to really quite urgently now towards sustainability and local resilience. So thanks for the opportunity for sharing that. I hope we can get into a bit of a discussion, and I'll hand back to Suzanne.
Thanks a million, Davey. That's brilliant. Yeah, thanks a million. Like, I think you can see how you've really brought in the programs into the delivery of your work. It's great. Now I just need to introduce Declan. Is Declan there? Did we lose Declan?
No,
Oh,
we're here,
sorry.
you know.
Didn't come.
I feel very inspired to jump in my car and go up and visit Clough Jordan. That's what I'd love to do now, I must say, you know. But it looked fantastic what Davey is doing up there, I must say. I work with an organisation called Waterford and South Tipperary Community Youth Service, and we're at the opposite end of our journey. So we're just beginning. So this time a year ago, we had no real environmental focus at all. So what I'd like to do is just to talk about what we've done in the last year, really, and see how the Sustainable Development Goals have fed into our work and what they actually do for us. So we have a kind of, actually, do you know what, that photo actually is just kind of a nice introduction. I felt today with the impending lockdown that we needed happy photos. So I thought that that's a nice happy photo of people outdoors, traveling more than 5 kilometers away and being out in the wilds and the environments. So this, one of our principles that we came to with the young people was that you cannot be what you cannot see. So a lot of our young people, they kind of stay within the 4 walls of their house, or they stay within the kind of the turf of their local estate. And what we try and do is we try and bring them out of that space and land them in the wilds. And because other than, if they don't know what's out there, they can't do anything about it, and the sense of perspective on life isn't there. So one of our kind of guiding things is you just cannot be what you cannot see. So, sorry, that's just a slight introduction. So we're a youth service down here in the southeast of Ireland. We work with about 4,000 young people every year. We have around 40 youth projects, of which Woodstown, where I work, is just one of them. So we use youth work as our methodology. And youth work, for those of you who may not be aware of it, is actually planned informal education. That's in its simplest form. It's planned informal education. So it involves sometimes experiential work. It involves being together. It involves working on relationships. It involves a focus on social skills, on how people kind of meld with society. So that's where we are, and that's what we kind of do. But one of our key principles is that we start where young people are at. So we look at the needs of young people and we try to work our programs around them. So that's what we did with the environment. We did what's known as a needs analysis a year or 2 ago, and young people were talking to us about the environment. So we went off and we tried to figure it out. And we came across the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And what they provided for us was they provided this framework for discussion and conversation and connection. And I think Caitlin said it earlier on, that it's something that's bigger than yourself, that you can buy into. And it provided us with that opportunity to discuss things. So we went to the National Youth Council of Ireland, did the One World webinars, which you had the book there earlier on, Caitlin, and we have that here. I have it literally on my bookshelf behind me. And then we got the kind of the things from the UN. We got the Sustainable Development Goals. We looked at the EU Youth Goals. We looked at what the young people wanted. We looked at what Waterford, the area and the local council wanted. And the Sustainable Development Goals gave us that forum to discuss so that people could buy into what we were trying to do. So we use youth work methodologies to put in place a number of actions, really. And it was Erasmus Plus was the core sort of vehicle that we used to put in place those actions. So Erasmus Plus, we did a youth mobility exchange where we had 32 young people from all across Europe came out to us. We did a kind of a larger project that we're just starting called Be Environmental, where we're learning from best practices around Europe. But the other thing that happened was we used the European Solidarity Core. So we have a core group of 10 young people here who are learning together kind of on their own, almost autonomously, about the environment and doing things that they're interested in doing. So we had 3 kind of projects, and all based around that simple principle of you cannot be what you cannot see. So we've gone out into forests, we've gone beekeeping, we've gone foraging at the seashore, we've got all of these sort of things and ways of living. And the outcomes from that have been very significant. So in 3 layers, they've come at us in 3 layers. And organizationally, what's happened is we've built our capacity to engage with environmental matters, but we've also built networks across Europe. At a societal level, there's been improvements in our communities. There's 1,000 trees being planted in February out by the Greenway in Waterford as a direct result of our project. We have technological apps that are engaging young people throughout Waterford called Community Tree, which I'll send on to everyone at some stage and ask you to join in. And then the impact then on young people has been immense at a kind of a personal level. So a year ago, we had no one doing anything about the environment. Now, about 6 months ago, we had about 50 or 60 people doing things. And in about 3 or 4 months' time, we'll have about 500 people across Europe doing things for the environment. And those things are anything. They can be literally just kind of behavioral change, doing things better. They can be tree planting, actually forests. I tell you, lads, forests, that's one thing that people are just totally into at the moment, the power of trees and nature. But I think it might sound better from a young person. So Andrew is here with me and he's a young person. So just for a minute, we might ask him what the impact was on his life, okay? Andrew.
Hey guys, so I've already introduced myself. I am Declan's assistant. Well, I'm actually going to use the word protege now, to be honest, because I prefer the sound of it. So I'm involved with Be Environmental. I also was involved with the local climate activists. Something that I talked about the last time that I addressed earlier is that it has quite an impact on young people's mental health. It's something that they're very worried about. And what these kind of mandates do is they build a framework for communication about it, but also they allow us to really get involved in it. Something that I was talking to a young person about the other day is they were after going to their school and they'd gotten rid of all water bottles. They used to get like hundreds of water bottles handed out and they got taps in the school. Now, that gave that young person a sense of power over it, which they didn't have before. But it also gave them a sense of almost vindication that, you know what, I can make a change, I can make a difference. And that's incredibly important on the impacts of mental health in young people. The other thing it does is it kind of networks you with people and organizations that can make a difference. So, for example, we work with the Arboretum out in JFK. We work with beekeepers now, actually, and that's really had a massive impact on how we see that we can actually make a difference, make a change. And something that Declan talks about is you cannot be what you cannot see. But what I also talk about is a win-win environment. And this has kind of laid the grounds that we have young people that now see that they can make a difference in society. Their mental health has improved, but also their environment in which they're in has improved. And we couldn't have done that without these mandates and also without Erasmus and the funding that's come for us. So I'll hand you back to Declan and thank you for letting me talk.
Sometimes things are much more powerful from the mouths of young people. That photograph, just to go back to that photograph just for 1 second, I kind of picked this photograph to show to people, mainly because everyone's smiling and we need to have happiness around the place. But it looks as if it could be in the jungles of Guatemala or Thailand or something like that. But actually it's County Wexford. So I just thought that would be nice to see, you know. But generally, so we have lots of very positive outcomes at a kind of an organizational, at a young person and at a societal level. But the impact is that young people are improving themselves and they're improving their environment. That's what's actually happening. And that's the change that we wanted to make. And what that's leading on to now is that young people are connecting with each other all around Europe, in Ireland, in our own little locality here, but in our local communities. And what they're doing is they're engaging with things that they can do that actually make a real difference, that they take small actions, but those small actions are building and building and building. And young people are becoming empowered. And what we find is happening is that they want now to participate in the world's conversation. And kind of, you know, Caitlin was on there earlier on about the things with UNESCO, the little projects and all of that. That's the world's conversation about the environment as far as we can see. And we were just saying there during your presentation, Caitlin, that we were going to go and engage now in these things. So they're participating. And what that's leading us into doing is conversing and talking about things that really matter. And ultimately, what are sustainable development goals, but things that really matter? And that's the way it is. So kind of just to sum the whole thing up very briefly, the sustainable development goals are a framework for conversation and connection and just to buy into something that's a bit bigger than us. And then we put in the needs of young people. We work through youth work. We use Erasmus Plus and the European Solidarity Corps as the vehicles to take action. And then we have some really positive outcomes with a huge impact at varying levels. And young people just connect, engage, empower themselves and take part in things. And the circle, it's like a virtuous circle. Andrew talked about a win-win situation. There's no losing here. It's a win-win everywhere. So that's me. And hopefully, Davey, I might pay a visit up to Clough Jordan with a group of young people at some stage in the future, if that's okay. Right, thanks.
Very welcome.
Thank you.
Great, thanks a million. So now I'm just going to hand you over to my colleague Pia. So Pia is going to talk about the Erasmus Plus program, but just say thanks a million, Declan and Andrew. It's really good to hear that the experience and on applying all of this into practice and the huge impact that it has. So without further ado, we'll introduce Pia.
Thanks a million, and thanks to everyone for their presentations. I've been curiously jotting down notes, and it's so nice to see the interconnection between policy and the programs and the needs of young people. And I loved Declan's little throwing in of connect, engage, empower, which obviously links to the EU Youth Strategy. So I'm very impressed. So I'm just going to talk to you a little bit now about the new Erasmus program, which is coming on stream next year for 7 years. So starting in 2021 and running until the end of 2027. And then I'll hand over to Suzanne, who's going to talk a little bit about the Solidarity Corps and how both of the programs as well link to sustainability and the prioritizing of sustainability in the new program. So I'm still screen sharing, am I? No? Okay. Bear with me for a second. Is it back? Okay, great. Perfect. So for any of you who are not currently involved in the program, don't worry. I know that we've been throwing around a few acronyms and things like that, like K1 and K2 and ESC and so on, but I promise all will become clear in time. When I started in Lergus, I was very bamboozled by all the acronyms for a long time. But clarity does come eventually. So the new Erasmus program, like I said, starts next year, and it'll be the successor program of the current Erasmus Plus program. So everybody who spoke today is involved in the current program. And like I mentioned, it will run for 7 years. Lergus is the national agency who manages certain elements of the program, and that includes any projects that run in the youth field, in vocational education and training, in adult education and schools. So what will the program look like? It'll look the same but different to the current program. So generally speaking, the structure of it will be broadly the same, but there are going to be some tweaks and some small changes. And a key priority will be green Erasmus, sustainability and incorporation of green practices into projects. So this is a little bit wordy, but I thought it was important just for people to kind of start looking and understanding, I guess, how the program is going to be prioritizing sustainability. So this is just a section from the draft program guide. And as you'll see, it says that the program will promote the incorporation of green practices in all projects, and organizations that are involved should have an environmentally friendly approach when designing their activities, which will encourage them to discuss and learn about environmental issues, make them think about what can be done at their level, and help them come up with alternative, greener ways of implementing their activities. So the first section there is really about, I suppose, incorporating green practices when you're actually designing a project. And then the second paragraph, it says that the program will aim to support awareness raising about environmental and climate change challenges, and a priority will be given to projects aimed at developing competences and skills on the area of sustainability. So it's really important to know that that will actually be prioritized in terms of how program or how project applications are assessed. So priority will be given to those projects that really build in that element of sustainability in terms of their practices, but also in terms of skill building and awareness raising around environmental and climate change challenges. Thirdly, then the program will support the use of innovative practices to make those who are involved in the program more, I suppose, aware of things like reducing energy use and waste, compensating carbon footprint emissions, and so on. And priority will be given to projects that enable behavioral changes. So that's also a really interesting one in the sense that it's not just about, I guess, incorporating or being aware of sustainability, but it's really about change in behavior. So it's very action orientated in that sense, the new program. So in terms of the actual structure of the program, I just wanted to run you through it very quickly because, as I said, there are going to be a couple of changes, but broadly it will look very similar to what we have at the moment. So so at the moment, there are 3 key actions in the program. Key action 1 focuses on mobility, so your things like youth exchanges, trainings, and so on. Key action 2 focuses on kind of longer term, bigger projects, and some people spoke about that in their presentations. And key action 3, which is only specific to the youth field, focuses on policy reform, and Caitlin spoke about that and how their young people are involved in a key action 3 project. So under the new program, what we expect, I say that because the European Commission tends to change its mind a lot, but what we expect to happen is that there will only be 2 key actions across all fields. So key action 1 and key action 2. So the first key action, like I said, will still focus on mobility of individuals. So that will include in the youth field, for example, youth exchanges, youth worker mobilities like you have now. So the opportunity to take part in study visits and training, seminars, workshops, and so on. And that applies also in fields such as adult education, which Davey spoke about earlier. And then what's new about the program is that key action 3, which is the support for policy reform in the youth field, will move into key action 1. Why, I'm not sure, but that's what they've decided to do. And the projects will be called youth participation activities. And what's really good about what they're proposing actually is that it's going to open up the way for far more young people to be involved in youth participation projects because it will allow much smaller and much more local groups of young people to apply for projects. And it will also allow informal groups of young people to apply. And this is a little bit similar to the European Solidarity Corps, which Suzanne will talk about later. So it will really give the opportunity for young people to, come up with ideas of how they want to work on the issue of sustainability in their own local communities and to really become agents of change themselves through the program. And it will really focus on youth participation. So, engaging maybe with local decision makers around the issue of sustainability, organizing seminars or events or awareness raising campaigns and so on. Key action 2 then, which are at the moment called strategic partnerships, will become partnerships for cooperation. Essentially, again, they're going to be the same, but what's new is that under key action 2, the program will enable small scale partnerships. So another priority of the program is really to become much more inclusive and much more, I suppose, open for smaller organizations to be able to partake in the program. So inclusion already is obviously a big priority, but the changes in the structure of the program really reflect that. So in terms of the Key Action 2 projects, again, smaller groups of organizations or smaller organizations will be able to apply for Key Action 2 projects. They will have smaller budgets in certain cases, and also maybe a shorter duration and simpler administrative requirements. So hopefully that will really pave the way for more people to go for Key Action 2 projects, which at the moment I think can be a little bit daunting when you don't have any experience in the program. And the activities that will be allowed will be quite flexible. So you can have a mix of transnational and national activities, which is really good to see. At the same time, obviously always having a European dimension. And really focusing as well on reaching out to people with fewer opportunities. So again, there's going to be a really good opportunity there to run projects kind of focused on sustainability, maybe at a little bit more of a local level, whilst at the same time, obviously always still connecting with that European dimension and European partners. So that's really a whistle-stop tour of what the new program is going to look like. Just to give you a sense and a flavor, And we'll have lots more opportunities to talk about the new program in the coming weeks and months. Lergus will be holding lots of information workshops and so on, but hopefully it'll kind of get the creative juices flowing a little bit and you can start thinking about the kinds of projects that you might like to do. So I'm going to hand over to Suzanne now, who's going to talk about the European Solidarity Corps, and then we'll have some time for questions and answers. Thanks a million.
Thanks, Pia. Yeah, so the Solidarity Corps is a standalone program running completely separate from the Erasmus Plus program. Sorry, Pia, Pia's controlling my slides. So the focus, so all projects must address solidarity related topics, including sustainability. So solidarity related is huge and very varied, and we're glad that it's so varied. And obviously the fact that it includes sustainability and all of the stuff that's under sustainability is great. But the real aim really is to bring young people and organizations together to address issues at the grassroots level. So they're in communities. So these are organizations from very small to very large, but they're addressing these local issues at a community level. I'm really glad that Caitlin, you talked about action oriented sustainability goals, and then Davey, you talked about community catalysts, because this is all about having young people as active citizens. So it's a real opportunity and experience to activate young people. So the idea then is to develop empathy within these young people, so they understand that they can now walk in these shoes. They understand what's happening. So that's again linking back to what you were talking about, Declan, you know, and then to inspire young people to become those agents of change. So it's a really kind of, you know, experiential, informal learning way of bringing young people close to the issues in their community and to develop this idea of empathy. So the European Solidarity Corps really is an umbrella term. So for organisations to participate, they must have a quality label. So there's some changes in the new programme next year. So a quality label you will apply. And just to reiterate some of the stuff that Pia was saying there about, you know, the scoring and the weight that project applications and also organizations who are addressing sustainability, they actually get extra scores for that, which obviously then impacts on the amount of funding they get. So just to let you know, at a quality label stage, even, it's really important to put it in there. And then there's two strands. So there's the occupational strand, which is on jobs and traineeships. So a job is a job. And a traineeship then is a kind of traineeship that's not accredited. So it's not linked to any FETAC or anything like that, but it's skills-based learning so that young people can enhance the skills that they have and they become more employable. So it's those young people that are a little bit far away from the labour market who need that extra support or maybe an extra skill to make them much more attractive to employers. And then there's the volunteering strand. So next year, we're going to have two activities under those strands. So the volunteering individuals and teams. So Davey, you talked a lot about that in terms of what Club Jordan are doing in terms of the individuals. So bringing a group of young people to your organization to help you do what you're doing. But also, you talked about the team. So the team's idea is to bring a big group of young people from all across Europe, including Ireland, bring them together, look at this issue, have a very impactful short project, and then, you know, it's a really kind of, I always think that it's kind of a very, the results are very visual, they're, you know, very lasting because they leave this idea of having this group of young people come together and be very focused on something, you know, and that can be very inspiring for young people as well. So they're the kind of projects that we'd actually have had maybe in the EVS, and there's a lot of experience in Ireland on that. But I'm glad you talked about the Solidarity projects, Declan, because that is for 18 to 30-year-olds in Ireland who, you know, may feel passionate about something in their community. They may not understand this idea of connection to Europe, and through the program then they get this idea, actually other people are trying to address it across Europe. I can do something in my local community that fits into that and makes me part of this agents of change. And a great thing about the thing around with the new Erasmus program and the European Solidarity Corps is through the youth participation programs, they can be younger. So in our program, they have to be 18 plus, but under the Erasmus, they're 13 plus. So you could have solidarity projects and Erasmus plus youth Erasmus Youth Participation programs going on at the same time, you know, complementing each other, all that kind of stuff. So that's the way the program looks next year. So under the budgets then, you have travel, organisation support, inclusion support, pocket money, so the volunteers get paid a certain amount every day, linguistic support, so that's online linguistic support, so they participate in learning of the language online. There's also insurance that complements the European Health Insurance Card, so they're very well looked after. And then exceptional costs. So I suppose the idea of inclusion is to make sure that everybody is able to participate. So you have the exceptional costs as well. Yep. So I'll hand it to you. Sorry, that was a wistful stop tour, but I'm very conscious of time. There's probably loads of questions there for our speakers. So
I'm really conscious that we're running out of time, but we're not in any rush. So if people are happy to stay on for an extra couple of minutes, it would be really nice, I think, to have a little chat and to answer people's questions. I'm sure there are many. I've just put a little slide up there in terms of kind of next steps from our side. So we really encourage anybody who's not familiar with the program to familiarize yourself, visit our website, contact us. We're always on hand to answer any questions that you might have. We do lots of trainings, lots of workshops, all of them online, obviously, at the moment. So the good thing about that is that wherever you are, you can link in. This series that today's webinar is part of is called Webinar Wednesdays, and we hold them every Wednesday on different thematic issues. So you might also be interested in other areas that you'd like to link in with. So just check out our website and our social media pages. And I suppose we'll just open up the floor for questions and answers. Please don't be shy, and maybe it would also be nice for people to turn on their cameras now and kind of make it feel like we're all in the same room, if you like. If you don't, obviously that's fine too. And feel free to unmute your mics and just shout any questions at anybody.
Hi, Pia. I was just wondering, do you guys do any online presentations within boards or volunteer leaders? Because we are looking at climate justice as a project in the Frogger group in District 15, Dublin 15, and North Dublin. I'd love to connect with Clark Jordan and the other guys who were in the speaker list, because they've actually inspired me that what they've done in the last 20 years or 15 years or 7 years, it is possible to do it at a urban development level. There's a lot of kids in Tittlestown and in Wicklow and that would benefit from this, probably in Wexford, Carlow, Donegal as well. Anoga has a few hostels around Ireland, and they're networked with the Irish, with the youth hostel network around the globe, around 4,000 cities, where the youth use outdoor activities and explore, like how the lads in Waterford do. I'd love to share that story with and inspire the kids from 10 to 18 or even beyond to bring that positive message that they can do and change with baby steps. Thank you.
Thanks for that. And I'm sure, you know, if you'd like to connect in with any of the speakers, they might be happy to share their email addresses with you through the chat. And obviously, if you have any questions for us, please, you know, feel free to contact us after today's webinar. Suzanne and I can also just share our email addresses in the chat there, maybe. So that sounds very promising, and it sounds like you've been inspired by this morning, which is really nice to hear. And that's the aim of Webinar Wednesday. So
we were trying to start a beekeeping recyclable hotel in one of the community estates. It started with an initiative of just painting, but the kids seem to be crazy about bees and butterfly bushes and planting flowers and trees that are native to Ireland and keep the squirrels going and the butterflies going and the birds. Thank you.
You know, Lawrence, small furry animals and strange little creatures like bees and little birds that are kind of a little bit weird kids love them. I have a lovely picture of one of the kids with a big snail stuck to his forehead, and and it's just mad, like, and they're rolling around in dirt and all that sort of stuff is lovely, you know. And really, that's what we find has inspired young people. So that's where we're going. That's why beekeeping has become a thing. I've never in a million years until about 3 months ago dreamt that beekeeping was a thing. I just used to go to kind of Tesco and buy honey, and it was lovely. But now there's actually strange little things happening in forests. Kids love all that stuff, man. Love it.
Cheers.
Thanks,
Definitely connect with you guys. Probably even the guys in the Clark Jordan as well. That community initiative is, I've heard of it, but I've never seen it, and it's great to speak to the lads there.
Thanks. So I'm going to share my email and a web address for the Eco Village, and we've got a nice virtual 360 tour right now because we can't do tours, and it's a great place for groups to visit, and the Eco Village is offering some online modules too.
Brilliant.
Great.
Thanks.
Does anyone else have any other questions?
Sorry, I have a question at Declan, maybe in Woodstown. My name is Paul Broderick. I'm with Limerick Youth Service, and I suppose we're like you, Declan. We really haven't looked at this. God knows we dabble in it, but we haven't really put a program together. What was it difficult to get buy-in from the overall organisation, or what was the story there? How did you get the things moving along? You know.
I tell you where it was, right? Was we linked in with our own strategy creation process, which we do every 5 years. And as part of that, we did quite a significant needs analysis where we spoke with, 1,000 young people and all the other different stakeholders. And once the young people had told us that they were interested in the environment, then within the organization, it was a little bit like pushing out an open door. But the thing is, you have to have a scaffolding, Paul. Do you know what I mean? And we were able to say, something, lads, like there's funding there. There's through Erasmus, right, and through the ESC. So that generally often kind of opens more doors, right? So there was a way of doing that. So it was a needs analysis piece. The fact there was funding there, the fact there was support there, and the fact that actually the real thing is young people are telling us what they want. And that's the key to everything. So that was how it was. I won't say it was the easiest process in the world to set it all up, but by God, it was working. Now it's embedded, and now it's just going to continue and progress on, So that's.
I think what was really helpful as well, Declan, what you were saying was that you kind of framed it around needs, framework, and then the vehicle, and then the outcome. So I'm definitely going to steal that because it's a really nice way.
Whatever you want.
But really. The needs of the young people.
It's great when the young people tell you there's something that they want to do, and you're able to provide a solution that you can put into operation, then you tend to be pushing at an open door to some extent, Yeah,
exactly. Can I pose a question to you, Suzanne? Just in terms of you said quality label there. What's the context of that? Or
so the quality label really is that you agree to ensure that the framework is there to support volunteers. So, that there would be adequate accommodation, training, support through mentorship and all that kind of stuff. And then also that you're compliant with the mission and principles. I suppose, it's important to kind of when you're involved in the Solidarity Corps, it's about those issues at the community level and that you're connecting these volunteers with that. So you to say, yes, that's what I'm going to do with them. I'm not going to send them out to work in McDonald's, so it's just, so that's the thing. So it's to show that you're going to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. What principles do you say we'd have to be compliant with? Sorry.
Yeah. So the idea then that it's going to be high quality activities. So volunteers are not just, it's coming to do something very practical through a learning process, that it's about activating young people in terms of being connected to the issues, and the activities that they're going to do will create an impact, so they'll become the change makers. Yeah.
I have one further question, sorry now, for Pia, just in terms of the different types of partnerships. Could you have a cooperative partnership and say the small scale partnership working on a twin track approach, or is it one or the other? Or
yeah, there's no limit in terms of how many projects you can apply for. I suppose what we would always look out for then is that organizations have the capacity to run the projects. But you mentioned you were from Limerick Youth Service, is it?
Yeah.
So Limerick Youth Service have obviously been very involved in Erasmus Plus, and
Sure to have you.
yeah. So Priscilla and Stacey are, you know, they actually only did a presentation yesterday at a European event, and Limerick Youth Service was a good practice example of how you've really integrated international youth work into local practice and developing a European plan and everything like that. So, and I know you focused a lot on inclusion, but maybe a way of furthering your European development plan could be looking at how to integrate sustainability into that as well, if it's something that
And that's the next step, I suppose. Yeah, is the thing. Yeah, is the thing.
Great.
Excellent, Pia. Thank you.
Question for Suzanne. Suzanne, the quality label, I believe, the framework's gonna change, or there needs to be some adaptations. Do we have a sense of when the new guidelines and when we need to update our quality labels?
Yeah, so tomorrow, I have all my trainers in place now. So tomorrow you'll get an email. For any of you do have a quality label, you'll get an email with dates for the quality label hub, which will be the end of November, 1st of December. If anybody wants to attend those hubs, please let me know and I can send you on the information. So basically those hubs will go through what the requirements of the quality label application form, and they'll also go through the application form with you. So you'll get a sense of what's in the form and then also what's been asked. So you're more than welcome to come to that. Just let me know, send me an email if you want to be included. But yeah, so end of November, first week of December, or sorry, last week of November, first week of second week of December is the hubs. So we'll expect then the application forms to come in then after that. Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
I just have maybe a comment. I'm so pleased to see the emphasis on sustainability and environmentalism in the new program, because Pia might remember when we were applying for the Youth Summit Now, we included carbon offsets in the application, and that was not allowable in the budget. And it looks like it might be even required going forward. So finally.
Yes. Absolutely. And I suppose one of the things as well is that, you know, we recognize, I guess, that there is a slight contradiction, I suppose, in terms of a program like Erasmus Plus, and also the Solidarity Corps, which promote mobility. So in a sense, we are, you know, contributing partially to the issue of climate change and all of that. So it's really important, I think, for the program, the new program, to recognize that and to look at how we can mitigate against that. And then also to really look at, you know, we're living in a very changing and changed world. And I think there's still a lot that can be done at a very local level that can still be focused on European engagement and connecting with others around Europe. But it doesn't always mean that you have to hop on a plane. You can do a lot in your local community and still bring that European dimension. And I think, Caitlin, you put that really well earlier in terms of connecting the local to the national, to the regional and the international. And that sense of solidarity as well that somebody spoke about, in terms of, you know, you could be doing something in your own community and it can really resonate with what others are facing in their own local communities as well. So I really hope, and I think that the new program will recognize that a lot more and will support it as well.
Can I ask Pia then, just because obviously for climate change and the current pandemic, travel should be drastically reduced. Do you think there'll be anything in the new guidelines or the new rules and frameworks for more support for blended meetings? I mean, it just seems ridiculous to fly halfway across Europe for a meeting now that we can do quite easily virtually, but we don't get the support for it. So we're forced. I'm hearing partners flying to airports just to avail of the support while doing most of the work blended and virtually. So I just wonder if you've heard anything or there's any potential for more support for blended or virtual.
So it's obviously something that the current program has had to adapt to fairly quickly. And there are still some issues in terms of, you know, if you do an activity virtually, that you can't avail of all of the full set amount of organizational support costs that you normally would. So that is a problem, and I think it can be a real barrier for organizations. But I would hope that in the new program, and I think there will be more of a focus on blended, because there has to be, you know, I think we're going to be in and out of this situation for quite a while. And also in terms of different countries. You know, like we are on the periphery of Europe, so it's much more difficult for us to travel. Whereas, you know, maybe in mainland Europe, when things settle down a little bit, it is easier to hop on a train and maybe go across a border into another country. So, and also I think that, you know, we've shown that a lot can be done virtually, and we don't always have to travel, and it's as effective, if not more effective sometimes, to just link in online. So I'd be fairly confident that, you know, the new program will definitely facilitate that more. I think it has to.
Brilliant, Pia. Just to add, I think it's important that that as well, when we're meeting, currently I think we're forced through these programs to use Ryanair and cheap flights, and we need to maybe move to a more slower travel where maybe there's a bit more budget, so we can take trains, we can go overland, we can take a bit longer to get to the meeting. It would be really useful as well.
Yeah, that will be facilitated in the new program. So projects will be encouraged and supported to take more environmentally friendly modes of transport, and they'll get financial support for that as well. Again, I suppose, I mean, it's great to hear that people are keen to do that. I suppose, again, being in Ireland, that can be more difficult because it means more time away from work, traveling. And it's sometimes I think it can already be very difficult for people to get that time away from the office, maybe to go on mobility activities. But it will definitely be supported, and we will be encouraging that as well.
Same in the Solidarity Corps as well. Yeah.
We'll all be back getting ferries.
Yeah.
And trains.
Yeah. And on your bike.
Yes. That could be a project, cycling across Europe or something like that.
Be a project for someone to bring their bike on a boat and a train, wouldn't it? And
Bike on a train, coach, by any means.
yeah.
Walking.
Can I? Hi, can I just say thank you very much. That was so interesting. We're just about to start on our new project, Erasmus, with 3 other countries from a school. So there's so many new ideas here, and it was really, really great now. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Danielle.
Yeah, that's great to hear.
Yeah, no, brilliant. We're looking into sustainable energies, and they call it environmental protection measures. So that's what we'll be. We might do a trip up to Cloughjordan as well now if you'll have us, because there's so many new ideas here now. It's great. Thanks very much. Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, Daniela, I put into the chat just the website for the Eco Village, which has the Eco Village's own training, not necessarily the farms and cultivates. But just as a visit for groups, it is a good visit, but currently we've had to take a lot of our sessions for groups online.
Of course, yeah.
Have a look there, and once we get back, I'd be delighted for groups to come here, especially if they're diving in or looking at how they put sustainability and, you know, the need for regeneration and resilience more than just greening and sustainability, to be honest. How do we restore ecosystems, regenerate communities, stronger local economies, meaningful work, livelihoods? So it's not just about the environment. I think I've spent 20 years telling people I'm not an environmentalist, in the sense my focus is on a healthy environment that supports a healthy society and economy. And that's at the heart of sustainability, as Caitlin showed with the nested SDG diagram. We need to think and move into a more collaborative, connected, you know, we're such individualists, and I think part of the solidarity agenda is a more participative, engaged citizen, not just young people. So
it's brilliant to see, isn't it, that it really has changed the last, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, and from being the odd one out and the weird one, like it's suddenly all moved into mainstream, and so that's brilliant kind of to see.
Thanks so much, guys. Are there any other final questions? Or I'm conscious we've held you for longer, but I think it's been a really wonderful discussion, and I feel very inspired and energized by this morning. So thanks a million. And like I said, we've shared our contact details there, and I think the speakers have as well. So if anybody has any follow-up questions, please feel free to contact us. And there'll be lots more on this issue and on this theme as we go into the new program. So watch out for that. So yeah, I hope you all stay safe and well over the next few weeks, and sane and mentally well over the lockdown, and mind yourselves. But hopefully it's also a time to get creative and start thinking about project ideas.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
It was very informative and very positive. Well done. Excellent.
Great. Thank you, Paul.
Thanks a million.
Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Caitlin, do you want to hang on for a second?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah, perfect.